Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. He was the spokesperson for tenacity, the warrior who transformed suffering into gold hits. However, beneath tattoos, jelly rolls, and victories, a quiet conflict was developing, one he concealed from even his most devoted followers. Then one instant backstage shattered everything, and what transpired left his whole squad shook. Although the indicators were present, did anyone catch it in time? For many years, Jelly Roll is more than a simple chart. Top performer. He has served as an emblem of survival. From jail cells to his trek to the Grammy stage reads like a script for a film, raw, gritted, and brimming with heart. However, even the most powerful voices can break if the weight becomes too great. Additionally, behind the scenes, Jelly Roll has been bearing a burden much more sinister than anyone could have guessed. Sources near the AA country rap artist has disclosed that he has been shocked to his core by recent occurrences. Center. As supporters applauded his sold-out displays and honored his mainstream Jelly Roll's breakthrough, was discreetly battling an internal crisis, one that put his job in jeopardy, with his relationships, his health, and even his determination to continue. It wasn't AA public breakdown or a tabloid scandal. It was more profound and human, something that addresses the very he's always sung about. Battles, the haunting addiction and anxiety trauma ghosts that never completely vanish. In interviews, he has made references to the return of the gloomy days, but nobody was aware of it. How near the edge he actually was up to now. According to insiders, it began with minor adjustments, cancelled and missed calls, appearances, a glare in his gaze. However, the pivotal moment then arrived, a private crisis that compelled him to face everything he believed he had defeated. And passionate moment that ended his surroundings are terrified. And nevertheless, he did what he always does, pretend to be brave for his admirers. However, the mask is beginning to come off. In the next several minutes, we will be delving into Jelly Roll's heartbreaking details never intended to be shared. The reality of what's taking place behind the scenes, the tour journeys, and the limelight. Additionally, as the whole picture is revealed, one question hangs in the air like smoke. Can the A-man who ascended from the bottom of a rock survive this autumn, prior to the dazzling lights and charts of billboards, prior to the sellout arenas and heartfelt tributes? He was only a young man named Jason DeFord from the Nashville's Antioch neighborhood, Tennessee, a state where dreams were rare occur, and second, opportunities were infrequent, provided. Having been born on December 4th, 1984, Jason grew up surrounded by struggle. He was raised in a working-class family, house with a mother who is struggling with mental addiction, health problems, and a father, someone made money by selling meat from a truck, make ends meet. His surroundings were unclean, erratic, and frequently harsh. However, amidst that confusion, a young Jason discovered a certain solace in music, particularly the truth-telling sort. His haven was rap music. He was attracted to artists who displayed their suffering, like Tupac and 36 Mafia, men in armor who created anthems out of scars. However, even when he began penning rhymes and aspiring to something greater, the streets were calling already. When Jason was a teenager, he fell into a life that was similar to those in the tunes he revered. Crime and incarceration. At the age of 14, he was taken into custody for initially. He was in and out by 16 of holding minors in custody, and not for long afterward, he was charged with a felony. Accusation that would remain in his memory for years. That would have been for many Final Destination, a one-way ticket to nowhere. However, something within him refused to go away in silence. While in service, Jason started honing his writing over time. Abilities. He put all of his feelings into lyrics, writing verses in prison cells and having a dream about a stage he had never seen, not yet. It went beyond simple therapy. It was survival. And after he eventually exited, he adopted the moniker Jelly Roll. When he was a fat child, his mother provided him and changed it into a type of vicious sincerity. He started selling mixtapes from the rear of his vehicle, playing at underground performances and working together with other rappers from the South. The grind was authentic. No budget, no management, just pure ability and a strong will. His music discussed poverty, addiction, redemption, and broken houses. Not as abstract ideas, but as experienced encounters. And gradually, the world began to take note. However, success didn't arrive overnight. For many years, Jelly Roll was disregarded by the general public as merely another act of subversion. His look, heavily set, tattooed, and frequently sentimental, and didn't match the clean appearance of popular culture. However, that's what led to He's Real, and that's why his following expanded, intensely devoted. They weren't merely, they were alive, while they listened to his tunes, them. In the background, Jelly Roll's and life was changing. He turned into a father from an early age, an encounter more than any hit, that transformed him, record ever could. Bailey, his daughter, and turned to become his storm's fulcrum, the explanation for his perseverance when everything, something else seemed to be collapsing. He later got to know podcaster Bunny So and Model, who not only married him but his rock, which helped him get through the darkest times and assisting him in believing once more in love. Family took center stage of his environment, despite traveling and establishing a reputation. Roll of Jelly ensured his followers understood what, actually, to him, it mattered. His spouse, his children, and the notion of creating a more positive legacy compared to the one he was from. However, the demons never completely vanished. He's been candid about his continuous struggle with mental health and addiction, recognizing that although the celebrity may have increased, the agony didn't appear overnight, disappear. He didn't get his start in country music by something that nobody, not even him, anticipated. However, once he entered the category, combining twangy music with his unfiltered lyrics, melodies, and moving narratives, it clicked. All of a sudden, a completely new audience found Jelly Roll. And they didn't see not only an artist, but a man with endured the type of suffering that most people away from. Lush, his breakthrough single, A Sinner's Son, seized the paradox that inhabited him. The tension between failure and faith, between relapse and redemption. The tune launched him into a new level of consciousness, earning him accolades, TV roles, and a heartfelt big old op debut even. For the Antioch child, it was a complete moment, in the circle that made him cries and quiet in a space full with myths. However, even as his fame grew, the burden of his history never went away. Shoulders. Jelly Roll has frequently stated that he does not aspire to fame. He desires to make an impression. He wants to be the voice. That serves as a reminder that broken people are not by itself, and although that mission is admirable, has a cost. In the background, the pressure has increased. With each accomplishment, with increased accountability, more anticipations, more nights gazing at the ceiling, questioning whether he was sufficient. And lately, those fissures have started to display. Longtime relatives and family insiders, partners, have indicated that the weight that Jelly Roll has been bearing, his past, current, and function as a public figure, spouse, and father is starting to close the gap with him. A silent health scare, hushed concerns about burnout, the emotional strain that underlies. The storm has been exacerbated by closed doors, whirling underneath the surface. He's still grinning for the cameras while continuing to provide fans, but those that are familiar with him, I'd say that something has changed. He's withdrawing further, thinking more deeply, questioning whether he can actually outrun the suffering he has endured for decades, singing in the air. And there, we discover today's Jelly Roll. Not only as a performer, but as a man torn between his life of escape and his life of constructed, a parent, a husband, a warrior, and maybe more than before, a soul-seeking tranquility in a world that continues to drag him back into the flames. His story's next turn is yet unknown, not in writing. However, one thing is certain, that the fight is far from over, and the following chapter may be the most significant one to date. For months, there had been rumors circulating in the camp of Jelly Roll, not from news outlets or bloggers, but from people who know him well. His family, his tour staff, and even his bunny Zoe, the wife, had started to observe the indications, the restless evenings, the growing exhaustion, the stage moments, where he appeared far away, not in tune with the music, but from himself. There was a problem. Next, the moment that sent shockwaves arrived, through his inner ring. A personal medical crisis a few hours before to a significant appearance. Insiders claim that Jelly Roll had passed out while wearing his dressing. Moments in the room before leaving. Towel come, a large crowd. The space was one moment it's quiet, the next it's turmoil. They called for EMTs. His blood pressure had spiked. He was trembling, pallid, and he was having trouble breathing. Fans were initially informed it was fatigue, that the tour itinerary was now in sync alongside him. However, those within were aware. Better. It was more than simply exhaustion. It was a red flag. His entire body was yelling. His thoughts had been too arrogant to express aloud. He was exhausted. Physicians suggested rest right away, a complete halt on traveling, and a thorough examination of his general well-being. However, Jelly Roll, always the pushed-back warrior. Dates were present, reserved, fans awaiting, and commitments he thought he was unable to leave. Show cancellations seemed like a break. Assurances. And Jelly, if there's one thing, despite Roll's constant attempts, it's never let his followers down, since he is aware of the experience of being abandoned. However, in private, the actuality was indisputable. Years of physical stress, mental strain, and emotional pressure battles for health had taken their toll. The man who had previously overcome addiction was currently up against a different kind of beast. Their relentless demands to keep everyone else resilient while quietly disintegrating himself. The collapse wasn't the only thing. Other warning signs were present. A missed opportunity. Bunny's podcast presence is uncommon for a pair so unified and honest. Suddenly, abandonment of social media. A series of delayed interviews without explicit justification. The man who poured his spirit had gone silent on the internet, and fans started to take notice. Next, that there was a confession, not in a news statement, not in an attention-grabbing title, but in a silent live stream in the middle of the night, using his Jelly Roll's face, illuminated solely by a faint lamp, addressed his followers, not as a celebrity, but as an agonized man. "I haven't been all right," he acknowledged, his voice breaking. "I believed I could, but I can't carry it all. I've been frightened. I have been exhausted, and I have been disregarding my own cautionary tales for too much time." He continued by discussing the pressure to perform, despite having difficulty with panic episodes and anxiety. He acknowledged that he had relapsed into bad behaviors, not drugs, but pushing, loneliness, and emotional eating his boundaries before his body gave out. Why was the moment so potent? Was more than just his candor. He owned it. Modesty. Jelly Roll, the individual who formerly looked down on addiction and jail walls, was now acknowledging something, possibly even more difficult. Because he was a human, he needed assist. Over the next few days, fans came together in support of him. Love-filled messages, understanding and support flooded in from the internet's many locations. His bunny, the wife, posted a raw image of herself. Message: to remind everyone of the strength isn't about being all right all the time. It's about understanding when to take a break, recover, and request grace. However, as the dust settled, a more profound reality surfaced, one that shook even his most devoted supporters. Physicians had learned that Jelly Roll was present at significant chance of long-term health issues if he didn't make a change of course. Elevated blood pressure and chronic stress and cardiac warning indicators. Recent tests had revealed all of the strain. The types of problems that go unchecked could prematurely end a life. He received a decision. Take a moment to confront these problems, today, or else you could not be around to complete the legacy he began. It was a wake-up call that was unavoidable. Jelly Roll started to quietly reorganize everything. He withdrew from multiple forthcoming performances. He turned his attention to recuperation, on a physical and emotional level, in a spiritual sense. He began to notice a returning therapist, collaborating with a trainer, and re-establishing a spiritual connection, behaviors he had given up during the tornado of achievement. More significantly, he began speaking with his family more, opening out to Bunny and his daughter concerning the anxieties he had suppressed for years. Since the reality is that the suffering never completely abandons you, it simply discovers new locations for hiding. Those who have followed, he has been aware for years that this isn't the first. He has survived the storm. However, this one feels distinct. It's not about bouncing here, recovering from a setback. It comes down to decision-making, to truly experience life, even when you feel like you're breaking. And that's what makes this chapter is really strong. The Jelly Roll is no longer only the underdog who succeeded out. The man atop the hill is him, glancing back at the shadows and choose to proceed with clarity. Despite being devastating, this event could turn out to be the most important event in his life, not due to the actual crises, but consequence of his subsequent actions. Will he come back more determined, stronger, more deliberate? Will he accept the controls his health and ultimately placed himself initially? Or will the burden of expectations force him to return to his work? That nearly put a stop to it all. Nobody knows for sure. However, one thing is evident. The tale of Jelly Roll is not yet complete. It's being composed line by line, heartache by heartache, victory by victory. Also, if this chapter has demonstrated anything, including our heroes, require recovery. Thus, as supporters, all we can do, we must now wait and hope that one day, he doesn't just sing when he takes the stage for us, but since he genuinely desires to better, entire, healthy, and prepared to start over. For every pain, every the uncut lyrics, and every sold-out arenas, the best of Jelly Roll's accomplishment that can't be discovered on in the modest ways, yet on the Billboard chart beyond the theatre, he has transformed lives. Due to the fact that, behind the tattoos and the A-man with a difficult past has created a legacy based not only on achievement but also on assistance. Throughout time, Jelly Roll has sutilized his position not out of conceit, but rather for visibility for the underprivileged, the addicted, the prisoners, and the heartbroken. He hasn't only performed songs about redemption, he has experienced it. Additionally, he's reached back to yank people from the fire as well. Among his strongest contributions were made when he went back to the identical juvenile correctional facility in Nashville, where he had previously been detained as a teenager. However, he didn't enter this time as a prisoner. He entered as a guide. He gave money. A music studio will be constructed inside for $250,000, the facility providing juvenile prisoners with a voice, an outlet, and a cause for belief that they were able to change their tales. I wanted to provide these children within 2023, he expressed hope in an interview with CBS Mornings. My life was rescued by music. Perhaps it can also save theirs. His endeavors didn't end there. Additionally, Jelly Roll has been an ardent supporter of mental health consciousness, addiction treatment, and overhaul of the criminal justice system. He has spoken at rehabilitation facilities, backed by non-profit re-entry initiatives, utilizing his social media raising funds for families by doing the following, impacted by addiction. At a moment when a lot of celebs avoid being real. Global concerns, Jelly Roll enters them. Even his connection to his wife Bunny So has emerged as a shining example of affection and recovery. Together, they've transformed their Dumb Blonde podcast into a site where pain, healing, and redemption are talked candidly, providing listeners not only for amusement, but emotional haven. Fans of Jelly Roll's are more than simply supporters, they're survivors. His performances don't feel as more akin to group therapy gatherings where random people join in on their own suffering and recovery. Additionally, that is possibly the core of his influence. He's established a community. He now has a voice to those who felt unnoticed. He's demonstrated that your history does not define you the future. He has reminded us of, although messy, redemption is achievable. And currently, as he confronts one of the most portions of Jelly Roll's life, the need to leave a legacy is greater than ever. Not out of fear, but out of faith. Have faith in the guy who arose from the stone. The bottom can rise again. This time, not for recognition or praise, but for himself. Jelly Roll's narrative isn't affable. It lacks polish, cleanliness, and foreseeable. It is a ballad about battle cards, one that is broken and full of poor decisions, hearts, valiant resurgences, and incomplete leans. However, that is the reason it is so strong. Since Jelly Roll's steps, he brings all of his energy to the stage, a tale with him. And when he vanishes, it serves as a reminder away from the spotlight that our warriors also suffer from bleeding. Even the strongest voices require rest from time to time. Additionally, the one who offered us hope might more than ever. We are needed. Thus, if you've ever discovered solace in his songs, if his have lyrics ever supported you during a nightmarish night, if his voyage reminded that recovery is achievable, then this is the time for you to be there for him. Forward love him and help him get better. And if you're struggling with your own issues, let his tale serve as a reminder. You're not by itself. You are important. Furthermore, it's never too late to start over. Similar to this video, hit the notify button and subscribe button while we wait, observe, and eagerly awaiting the next phase.